Well, good morning, everyone. This is Jim Manker from the CSAC Finance Corporation. I'm the Director of Business Development for them, and we're happy to have another great webinar with us today. We're also acknowledging our relationship with ILG, our hosts, and Randy Kay, which you'll hear from in a minute. ILG and CSAC have been partners for as long as ILG has existed, about 65 years, and we share a lot of information. We do a lot of events together and just have a strong partnership. So we're thankful for them and thankful for their hosting today. And in addition to that, this webinar itself has been put on by one of CSAC's great partners, Cosmont Companies. And Larry Cosmont is with us today and has assembled a great team of experts from cities and counties to talk about this issue that we're going to be dealing with today. So I'm just thankful for Cosmont and their partnership with CSAC, and not to mention, I think Larry's a great guy and a great friend, and so it's always wonderful to work with him on projects like this. So again, thanks for your attendance, and we're looking forward to hearing from our panels today, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Randy Kay, for some instructions about how this webinar is going to proceed.
Thank you so much, Jim. Really pleased to have the Institute participating in this wonderful CSAC and Cosmont partnered webinar. And Robert, if you wouldn't mind passing along, there we go. We have a screen here that demonstrates how you can participate in today's session. All attendees are currently on mute, and we ask that you add in any questions for the panelists in the question box on the right side of your screen using the GoToWebinar platform. Those questions will be sent to me, and I will share them with the panelists as needed and facilitate any questions regarding any audio or technical issues. So please go ahead and use that questions box to get your any questions answered that you need about content. We'll deliver those to the panel, and then any questions regarding audio or technical issues I will handle. Thank you very much for attending and participating and allowing the Institute to be a part of your educational experience as a policymaker and professional in local government. Continue to reach out to ILG for resources related to public engagement, sustainable and resilient communities, leadership and governance, as well as workforce development and civics education. Thank you.
Good morning, Larry Cosmont. My turn, Randy, can I go?
Please do. Thank you, Larry.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Cosmont has enjoyed a terrific partnership with CSAC and ILG, and Jim and Randy and the whole team is incredible to work with. We have the privilege today, and I think there's over 100 of you in attendance, so we're really pleased about that. I think that's because enhanced infrastructure financing districts in a post-COVID economy are really taking on significant momentum. We'll show you that in a minute. I have this incredible panel today. Bobby, you move forward on the next slide, that I'd like to introduce. First, I'd like to say this is the first time I've given literally dozens of EIFD panels. As many of you know, you're probably sick of hearing from me, but the topic is timely and it's important and it's robust. But this panel features 2 counties and 2 electives. First time I've done any panels on EIFDs with 2 counties. It's usually dominated by cities because cities tend to be the initiator, not in the case of Madera, which is why Matt's on here. And then also counties have been working now on an increasing basis in joint venture partnerships on EIFDs, and so Supervisor Chafee is on working hand in glove with Chad Wanke, council member and Mayor Pro Tem of Placentia. So this is a first. You'll hear today from these 3 great panelists. I'm going to start out with an overview on EIFDs. I'll go through that very quickly. I'll introduce this panel, of course, and then we'll move on to Mayor Pro Tem Wanke, and then Supervisor Chafee, and then Community Development Director Matt Schraber. That's the order we'll go in, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So again, pleasure to be here. We'll move through this pretty quickly, and hopefully you'll find this of great interest. So introducing my colleague and friend Chad Wanke, Mayor Pro Tem of Placentia. Chad is a Northern Orange County native, graduated from Cal State Fullerton with a BA in geography. He's a unique individual in that he has really extensive experience in private sector investment, development, and business. as well as public sector with an emphasis on land use and other strategic financing programs like this EIFD. He is president of Orbis Capital. He directs those companies' activities. He was in 2008 elected as treasurer of Placentia and is now on the city council, reelected in 2014 and has served as mayor a couple of times. Vice Chair, Supervisor Doug Chapey, welcome Doug, elected to the Orange County Board of Supervisors in November 2018. No stranger to local government. He twice served as mayor for the city of Fullerton and served as a council member for a total of 6 years. He has been at the forefront of issues related to homelessness, open space, affordable housing. He's also a tremendous supporter of transportation and infrastructure, which is why and how Orange County had his leadership in becoming involved in this EIFD. He's a Fullerton resident, has a BA in economics from Redlands and a JD from Northwestern University. And then finally, but not least of all, another colleague, Matt Trieber, who's been with Madera County for 16 years. He is the Community and Economic Development Director in 2016. And I'll just confess that both Chad and Matt are my bosses on different assignments here, actually as is Doug, because he's on the PFA board. So he worked for all of these folks. They're all top notch. Matt's case, he was appointed in 2016. He is running development services, economic development. It's an expansive department that includes public works, water, natural resources. He's also as in the lead on community and economic development departments. He is taking the lead on the 3 EIFDs, 2 established, 1 in process in Madera County. So that is our panel. I don't think it can get any better. Let's move forward on to the next slide. Actually, we can move to the next slide. Covered all of this. So let me set the stage by why I think EIFDs are a timely topic, are gaining momentum, and are really becoming key joint venture opportunities between cities and counties, as we'll discuss on this panel. Reality is that we are returning to a new normalcy, and that means at every level. For private investors and private developers, the entire priority of land use is shifting from retail to industrial with an emphasis on residential. We're seeing suburbs experience a boom unlike they ever have. And we suspect that we'll have an urban rebound again, but the pandemic will leave some residual behavior that I think is going to make growth in urban areas a little bit leaner and growth in suburban areas more robust. Federal help is on the way. We know that. The question is, how do you spend that money? How do you retool a local economy that has been basically reshuffled in significant ways? Next slide. And I'll show you how we view this as at Cosmont. As you know, Cosmont focuses on 3 areas for its public agencies and private sector investor and developers: real estate, economic development, and public finance. Those are the 3 areas. We see that as a 3-legged stool. Our real estate analysts have concluded that nothing is really the same anymore. Hotel is going to come back certainly in the next 2 years. It certainly won't be in this year, probably a 22, 23 emergence. And it will depend on the convention center business. Retail is entirely in shuffling mode. It is storefront retail exiting and downsizing, digital and service retail expanding. Office, another use that is totally reconfiguring, sideways. Suburban markets are more resilient, but how much and how frequently people go to the office will be the determinant of how expansive the growth will be in office going forward. Residential and industrial are the leaders of the pack. Getting rooftops in California is a priority, and industrial growth as a result of supply chain adjustments from COVID and the ongoing expansion of digital commerce really has put industrial at the forefront. So next slide. So really what this means is that as you all in your public agencies are looking over the landscape of local economies, of employment, of private investment, of zoning and land use and taxes and revenues, you have to just know that everything has changed and that industrial is becoming infill retail. Retail is becoming anything else: service, distribution, entertainment, food, medical. Online is becoming storefront, and storefronts are moving online, and regional centers will recast entirely and move to community centers. Urban becoming more suburban, and suburban clearly becoming more urban, because everyone is now after that 15-minute community. So what does that have to do with EIFDs? Let's move forward. It has everything to do with it, because in a reshuffled, resizing, restaging economy, cities and counties have to figure out how they're going to retool when they built their economies on brick and mortar retail and sales tax revenue. I often say that there's that song, we built the city on rock and roll. We built our cities and counties on retail. So now we need those economic development tools that can help us rezone, help us get investment, help the capital stack materialize, because the lenders are concerned. They see a lot of unpredictability. Sure, the markets are coming back because consumer spending is starting to get re-engaged and employment is starting to recover. But where that money gets spent is still an element of risk. So EIFDs and tax districts, as bracketed in green on this slide, are a way for public agencies to select areas of their communities and direct investment, direct the new type of investment that's certainly coming, and to capture the value and put it to work in your community so you can rebuild the community that's been shifted around and pushed around by the COVID impacts. Next slide. So why EIFDs? I mean, there are a host of different types of special districts that the state has approved in the last 4 or 5 years in replacement of redevelopment, which we extinguished at the end of 2011. These districts all have different priorities, a lot of them related to housing, some related to CEQA. Enhanced infrastructure financing districts are the most flexible, they're the most versatile. They let us accomplish public infrastructure, amenities, mobility, housing, resiliency, sustainability, and we can use these districts, particularly when we're in partnership with other public agencies like a city and a county, to attract additional grant funds directly into our areas, into our cities and counties to motivate private investment. Next slide. So what is value capture? Value capture, I'm about to show you the tax increment slide in a minute, but value capture says that when you've created this tax increment district, you've done it for 45 years, it enables you to capture the additional value of investment that comes from property taxes that are generated by those private sector investments. The beauty of it is that there are no new taxes here. These are just capture of private investment within the prescribed areas that you selected. And those areas don't have to be contiguous. The incredible flexibility, like Chad will talk about Placentia, you know, there are different areas that they are focused on, and that's helped them. It's, you know, there's industrial, there's the downtown, there's the transit station. They can be contiguous, they don't have to be contiguous. That flexibility is really key, and for counties, that's very important. Counties are larger, so you can cherry pick, if you will, areas that you want to focus on. You'll see what Matt did in Madera, and pull them together in terms of timing of projects and timing of increment. In terms of return on investment, it enables the county and the city to capture the investment that's made by particularly large projects, whether it's housing or other tax revenues that come from hotel or so on. The key is that both the private sector and the public sector get a return on investment with an EIFD, and we can attract additional funds. And by the way, not only is the size and the non-adjacency entirely flexible, but in these 45-year districts, eligible projects include any kind of property with useful life of 15 years or more, including the ability to use some of the money for capital maintenance. Next slide. So tax increment, this is a very straightforward slide in the sense that all it says is that the day on the left, bottom blue, the day you establish your district, that's the baseline AV. That's the blue going across left to right. Everything after that happens, everything after year zero, there are years on the bottom and dollars on the top, on the left, excuse me. Anything after year zero is tax increment that comes from new development, or light green comes from the incremental growth of existing properties. But you know that there's a reassessment, a lot of you are counties, so you know that every year, and so that 2% or whatever reassessment is incremental growth. The point is that the combination of incremental growth and the new AV from new development gives you the tax increment to put to work, and you capture it for 45 years. That tax increment is leverageable in the marketplace. You're enabled to sell bonds against that tax increment pursuant to the statute. Next slide. So with so much flexibility, you can see why these districts are being used the way they are. They're being used in areas that are industrial, civic center areas, regional mall areas. They can be used for transit projects, affordable housing, utilities, wastewater, groundwater. Most of these titles, all of them really on the left and right, come right out of the statute. It's a very flexible, infrastructure-oriented investment program that enables private sector to take the investment that you're willing to make in that district and rely on it in making their investment decisions. And that's the point of attraction, the ability to set these out as a message, telegraphing to the private sector that you're in it for the long haul, that you're willing to rezone and induce, that you're going to invest and reinvest coterminously and collaterally with them. And that's how that arc that you saw on the last page swings up. Next slide. So no secret now. I mean, EIFDs were created 5 years ago, 2014. 7 years ago now, 2014. But we are now rocking and rolling. We have about 40 of these going up and down the state. These are a list of some of the projects and the districts that Cosmont's working on. You'll see Madera featured here. You see Placentia in Orange County. More and more, if you look at Laverne in LA County, if you look at Placentia in Orange County, more and more, we are seeing partnerships, just like we're going to talk about in a minute, to create and sustain these EIFDs locally and regionally. Next slide. So I want to introduce Chad Wanke, Mayor Pro Tem of Placentia. Chad, I know you're going to talk about the Placentia story and the partnership with Orange County. Take it away, Chad.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate the introduction. My name is Chad Wanke. I'm currently the Mayor Pro Tem of Placentia. I've served as a City Councilman for 11 years, and I'm chair of the Placentia Orange County PFA board. You can go to the next slide, please. So just a little bit of the history. We didn't randomly choose this area for the EIFD. For Orange County, Placentia is a fairly old city. The main east-west BNSF rail line across the United States runs through Placentia. And Placentia was historically a citrus growing area, and our Old Town is the original footprint of the city. So the rail area, the TOD, the Old Town area, which is now part of the EIFD, was based around the citrus packing houses and the railroad. So this was historically a heavily commercial and industrial area, and it had limited residential uses. Next slide, please. So you can see the rail line is a little bit hard to see, but it runs right through this red star there. The Old Town area is essentially the original city. It does incorporate residential, but there's a lot of commercial in there. The TOD area is the blue line to the south. And this area is especially good for the EIFD because we have a Metrolink station slated through OCTA and Metrolink, and it will be the closest Metrolink station for Cal State Fullerton. And that line runs to the Inland Empire, from the Inland Empire all the way to Union Station in Los Angeles. So this area had some historic uses that were industrial, dirty. You can see them in the lower left corner. We had people, storing pallets and cleaning out porta potties and things like that. So we had some packing houses, but we also had a lot of underutilized areas. And to go on to the next slide, our intent was to spur development. Now, because this is the original part of the city, a lot of the infrastructure is extremely old, or it's not really up to capacity for a more dense residential use. We've got several high density residential projects coming into the TOD area specifically, and we have done a TOD and an Old Town, two separate master plans for the area. But you can see, as Larry mentioned before, the areas are not contiguous for the EIFD. We've got 7 different areas, and the majority of those are commercial and industrial, not residential. The primarily, the residential area is all in kind of the northern section of EIFD sub-area 3. So we got around some of the concerns of the community that this was going to be eminent domain or it was going to be a tax increase. And this map is a great tool that we've used in our outreach to show people that what we're doing, and then explain the EIFD process. Next slide, please. So we've got several projects. This project may not look like a big deal for a lot of cities, but Placentia, I don't think had ever actually had a crane in the city. So having this project go up, it's completely out of the ground, and this is a really big deal for our city. It's on a two former industrial sites, and it's going to provide housing, a type of housing that's never been in Placentia and isn't really available very close to this particular area. This will be right across the street from the new Metrolink station, and it'll bring us a lot of impact fees and significantly increase the real estate values and provide missing housing for us. Next slide, please. This is the JPI project. It's another similar development, high density, mixed use, right on the rail line. So having good projects going in, I think, is really important when a city goes to the county with basically our handout and says, we'd like you to share your tax increment. Next slide, please. We pursued the EIFD because this current infrastructure needed updating. We've got an opportunity, an unusual opportunity with the Metrolink station. We wanted to promote new development and improve the quality of life. This will grow our local economy, not just in Placentia, but regionally, and it'll promote high-level public amenities and capitalize on our good relationship with the county. So we do have developer agreements that they'll finance capital street improvements and ongoing maintenance costs with the CFD, and it will allow us to reassess many of these properties that have been, because of Prop 13, they haven't had any significant tax increase in decades. Next slide. So this is truly a regional benefit, and I think it's important when a city goes to the county that we are a good partner, that, like I said, we've got good, true regional benefits. You can see here that these benefits obviously aren't going to stay in Placentia. These construction jobs are going to be, and the permanent jobs are going to be, people from all over the place. And you're also going to increase the availability of housing for Cal State Fullerton. Cal State Fullerton's experienced a huge boom since I went there, and there's a need for that. It also allows students to easily go the street Crowther that the TOD is on, and it's part of the EIFD, actually goes underneath the 57 freeway. So there's no traffic signal there. People can ride their bike or even walk over to Cal State Fullerton. And that gives us some other regional benefits like greenhouse gas emissions reductions, and it'll, just improved low impact transportation. Next slide. So some of the improvements that we're looking at, this is a streetscape in the Old Town area, Bradford Avenue, current and the future. Next slide. And we've got Santa Fe Street. This is what it looks like now. It's actually closed off because of COVID, and we've got tables and chairs in there, but this is our pre-COVID plan. We might actually keep that section shut off, close down that section of the street, but a huge improvement to an area that it has original buildings and original infrastructure. Next slide. So to wrap up, I think when a city is going to look at an EIFD, I think what the city and the county need to look at is the city going to be a big partner? So the city has to have their house in order, and one of the things that Placentia did is we balanced our budget. We added millions of dollars in reserves. We improved our bond rating significantly. We have a unified council and staff and a lot of public support. So we could go to the county with regional benefits, true regional benefits, to both the city and the county. Our TOD area and our Old Town area are right on the border of Anaheim and Fullerton. They also impact Brea, La Habra, and Yorba Linda. So there's a regional District 4 benefit there. And we were able to capitalize on our relationship specifically with Supervisor Chafee. One of the big takeaways that I got from this whole thing is that you have a 5-member Republican council, and we have a brand new Democratic supervisor. Historically, the seat had been Republican held, And rather than look at any sort of partisanship or partisan differences, we worked with Supervisor Chafee, looked at where we could work together, things that we could agree on, and we were lucky enough to get a supervisor that cares about the area and cares about the city. He has championed this for us. We didn't have a 5-0 vote at the Board of Supervisors, but I served for over 6 years as a county commissioner, briefly worked for the county, and have served on a variety of regional boards with other supervisors, as have my colleagues. I've got a lot of relationships at the staff level at the county, as does my staff at the city of Placentia. So we were able to build on existing relationships, like I said, be a good partner, demonstrate that we weren't going to be a burden to the county and that there would be true regional benefits. And with that said, I'll pass it on to Supervisor Chafee.
Go ahead, Doug, take it away. I just want to say in advance of the supervisor, it is it's really key to have the working relationship that Chad spoke to, and I know you'll hear directly from the supervisor on how they decided to get involved as a partner with the city of Placentia. Supervisor, all yours.
Thank you so much. It's kind of curious where I found myself on the Orange County Board of Supervisors as a new kid on the block. My colleagues are all Republicans, and as Chad pointed out, Placentia has a Republican council. But you don't worry about that. You work on serving what the needs of the people are. And I found Placentia a very special city. I want to compliment them on some of the other things they were doing. They created a project for homeless veterans that took a long time to create, but they stuck with it. They got it done. They worked with 13 other cities that are in the north part of the county to establish a navigation center, and also involved some county involvement. And so they're doing a lot of great things that were very helpful. And so I find it interesting, the title, Can Counties and Cities Get Along? EIFDs are a start. I would suggest that maybe you better have something before that. One thing that I did is I established quarterly meetings in city halls of each of my 6 cities. So that was to establish relationships, find out what their needs are. And it's very interesting when we got going with the Placentia EIFD. I'd go to the city and they said, what's Placentia doing over there with that EIFD? Can we do something too? So the relationship you have, the way that you communicate is extremely important. So I was involved in redevelopment in the city of Fullerton, so I understood the tax increment financing and how that worked. So kind of interesting, I think, is how the county approached it. And there was some reluctance because it was sort of a like redevelopment in the past, but different. So there was some differences of opinions whether we should even get involved in this kind of thing in the first place. But here we had a project that was incredibly enticing to do. That had a city that had worked overtime. I believe they held already like 28 public meetings to get public support. And so there were benefits, of course, to everyone here. You want to build your cities up because that builds a county as well. And so if you want to go on to the next slide, if you would. We have a Metrolink system that runs right through the heart of my District 4, more so than any of the other districts. And I'm very pleased to serve on the Metrolink board, as well as what we call the Orange County Transportation Agency board. And this would be a station that we'd like to have on the way to Riverside. What it does, among other things, is it releases traffic on the 91 freeway. And because of that, that gave justification to the transportation agency to provide the funding, which has been approved, to not only build the station, but also the parking structure that goes with that is an integral part. We have the next slide, please. So we see the new parking structure there and all the wonderful things that are contemplated in this area. And it just makes a huge difference. All the jobs are bringing. It's always been an issue here. And we have an issue where in the county where we don't have enough housing. They almost have to come from other places. So enhancing transportation is important. That's what this project does. It brings housing close to the line. We have the next slide, please. This is showing the contemplated parking structure to be built. I'm not sure we'll actually begin in 2021. There's some other issues you have to resolve. The next slide, please. This Placentia slide, it shows you what it looks like now. And if we may have the next slide, we can see what the future looks like. It's very enticing, incredible that we are going to bring all these housing and jobs and improving the infrastructure, which is old and can wear out. And so, may I have the next slide, please? I might say that the EIFD is particularly attractive to me. My district has the older cities in the county, and we have infrastructure that's wearing out. I was on the Fullerton City Council, was averaging like 50 water line breaks a year because of the old water that we had. So infrastructure is extremely important. As we look at these numbers, some of these things may slip a little bit on the dates, and I think one of the issues we have, it's not just the county and the city, there are other agencies that must be involved, Metrolink, the Orange County Transportation Agency. And the interesting issue, the right-of-way, the railroad that runs through Placentia is a private ownership by the Burlington Northern. So we have to negotiate with them to be able to do what we want to do, because some of the right-of-way is going to be built over. And that is still being worked on. We don't have that resolved. So some of these dates are likely going to slip. But we have to work together at all of these different agencies to bring this back into focus and to get this done. And it's been my personal frustration. We can't get these right-of-way issues resolved like right now. We will get them resolved, but it's going to take a little longer than I think we might expect. May I have the next slide, please? This is I think where my story is best focused. It's on getting a EIFD policy established at the county. So being new on the board, I wasn't sure how that all worked, but I did want to make certain we had a EIFD in Placentia. And what we did is we thought we should have a policy first, give some guidance. And what we did is using Placentia as a little bit of a guide. And the state law allows a much more liberal policy than we adopted. But in order to get the policy approved among my colleagues, we had to back off and be more conservative into how we actually approach things. So if I may, it's kind of look a little bit at what we were looking at. Some of the differences we had to make clear on our board is that in difference between EIFDs and the former redevelopment agencies, which had some opposition in the past. So the tax increment given to the new district would not include any property taxes associated with school districts. School districts are essentially getting a free ride as to any additional taxes that are generated from this enterprise. And that no new taxes are actually created, rather enhancing the base, and that increases the amount of property tax. And it's clear, though, that the county participation in any district is voluntary and requires board approval. So we looked at everything. We did establish a policy, and it is a little more conservative than state law, but it was my challenge to make certain we didn't get so conservative that it didn't work for Placentia. So I was in constant contact with the city manager, make certain that we would move forward, and it all did work out there. So among the things in our policy is we need an analysis before approving a new EIFD, demonstrating a net fiscal positive impact to the county. We wanted an evaluation of whether the county's participation is necessary for infrastructure for the projects to be undertaken, or is there some other way of doing it? We had a further requirement that a city's contribution of property tax, the project, be equal to or greater than the county's contribution. Then here comes one of the more conservative elements. We limited our tax increment base to 50%. State law allows you to go to 100%, but that still worked for Placentia. That's of our share of the increment of the property tax, which serves as the basis for issuing the bonds. Then we had a further thing that we wanted the property tax increment to last no longer than 30 years. We're contributing 30 years from the date of the bond issuance. State law, I believe, allows you to go 45 years, so we're more conservative, but that still worked for Placentia. And we wanted to cap our involvement and to an end date be identified. I think that's important that you not be open forever on that. So we did that. Then we also wanted to be certain that certain goals were accomplished. In addition to the economic development, we must require that the proposed EIFD align with our established board policies in at least one of the following areas. A, affordable housing. B, homeless prevention. Or C, workforce development and or job creation, or transportation improvements. And this project in Placentia, it does all of those things. So it fits like a glove. We're so pleased to have that going on. So I think that policy is important for counties to establish. It gives other cities some guidance. It's not that you can't waive some things in the future, but at least the cities have a way of knowing where they might fit and whether it will work for them. I must compliment the Placentia City Council and their staff for working so well together. It's been fun working with Chad and the rest of them. I get the impression that not only do they work well together, but even like each other. I could name some other city councils that maybe that doesn't happen, but I won't name them. I see a task of mine is to get this right-of-way thing resolved, and then we'll go full bore and get this thing done. I might point out there are other benefits financially. If you're a city, you're going to get developer fees and other things. And at the county, we're going to enjoy some increased sales taxes besides the property tax increment. So with that, Larry, back to you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Great story, really illustrative of what a city and county can do together. And I'm going to shift this to Matt Trieber. Just a quick comment, Matt, I can't resist it. No, I have to say that Madera went on its own and created 2 project areas, and that wasn't enough work. Matt being a glutton for work punishment, he's creating a 3rd. But I'll tell you that timing is everything. So in 2018, when Matt and the county decided to do this, there wasn't a lineup of developers investment. But today, it is really, Madera is moving rather, quickly, and it's a robust development economy. So they're going to catch the wave. They're going to catch that tax increment. So the point there, Matt, I know you'll make this too, is that if you're thinking as a city or county to move forward on an EIFD, guess what? We're in that part of the economy where we're facing some growth. Let's get that platform of tax increment on the books as quickly as you can. Matt, to you.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. We are certainly here in Madera County. We're a little different than our previous 2 panelists, and I think it was Mayor Chad that said they had never had a crane in the city of Placentia until that project, and I don't know that I've ever seen a crane until that picture. So we're a little different than our partner counties in the south. Madera County, we're a very rural county, population of approximately 160,000, sandwiched in between the city of Fresno or Fresno County and Merced County. So if you want to hit the next slide there, we'll just kind of jump right into it. So as Larry said, we did form 2 EIFDs, and we, prior to the recent change or the change in the law on EIFDs and the bonding requirements. So these were back in 2018, which is known as the Tesoro Viejo area and Riverstone area. So if you want to hit the next one, we'll get to that next slide. So this is just a little snapshot of Tesoro Viejo, which, as I said, we're a small rural county, but we're pretty scrappy. And so we are actually in the process, which not many counties do, if any, but we are really developing a new city right now that is kicked off in 2018 was kind of the commencement and the start of that. So Tesoro Viejo, as you see here, right, approximately 5,200 residential units, about 4 million square feet of commercial mixed use space. So we went from, in 2018, when this was put in place, we had basically a base property assessment of about $30 million. At build out, we estimate that that's going to be a little over $2 billion. So to Larry's point, right, we kind of caught this just right and got it in place before we saw rooftops going in and development and the commercial. And so we're going to capture all of that base to be able to bond against and do some of these regional improvements. I'll get to it a little later, so I'll go to the next slide now, but I want to talk specifically on what we're going to use, or what is planned to use this tax increment financing and the dollars being generated, what it's going to go towards. So this is the Riverstone Eifd. This is just down the street from Tesoro Viejo. It too started in 2018. We got it in place in 18. Base property rate of about 38 million. This is going to be at full build out. We estimate 2.4, 2.5 billion. So a significant jump there. You can see it's a little larger project. You have about 6,400 residential units here, and about a 2.5 million square foot of non-residential multi-use office commercial space here as well. You want to hit the next slide there? So here is another EIFD area that the county is working on and trying to get in place. This is currently all vacant land, no development. It's planned and zoned for industrial use. So it's right off of Highway 99 here in the county and Avenue 7. So it's just right at our southern border. Just to the south on this map would be the city of Fresno. So we've got some needs here. There's, no water, no sewer, none of those aspects are in place. So we're working to try to invest there. We have potential clients. The owner and developer has interest. They're a regional or a national, really, industrial builder, warehousing infrastructure. So we're trying to see how we can get some more jobs in the county and incentivize that and see some investment of these EIFD dollars once in place to provide sort of an offset for water, sewer, utility infrastructure development, since it is a complete green space area there. So you want to hit the next slide here. And I'll backtrack just briefly to talk really about the EIFD dollars and that increment that we intend to use on the county. So we have, as I said, we're fairly unique in that we are a rural county, 160,000, and as I said, here on this slide, you see those areas identified under A and B are the start of a new city of 160,000 people that we are coming out of the ground and building out there. And so unique opportunity in that we do have an ability to provide in the state of California affordable market rate housing in these communities. And the one thing that we view, or I view really as, in that, because that's a main key for my board and for, myself and the planning department and working with our housing authority, is making sure we are providing that affordable housing because our land is still relatively inexpensive. Cost of living is still relatively inexpensive for the state of California here in the Central Valley. And our main issue is, we need improvements to State Route 41, which, for those of you who don't know, if you go to Yosemite National Park, you probably traverse through State Route 41 and come through Madera County, over 4 million visitors. And so, these developments and these projects are along that corridor, and we're looking to try to fund about a $250 million improvement project to that state facility, all on the backs of the county of Madera. As much as I appreciate our friends at Caltrans, capacity increasing projects is certainly a bad word at the state level, and they are not putting any dollars whatsoever for that. So as a part of that, right, we put these EIFDs in there to try to generate that base so that I don't have to charge $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in impact fees and blow our ability to provide that market rate affordable housing out of the water here. So that's one of the main aspects and tools that we've looked at. That facility was impacted before these projects ever went in. It's a rural 2-lane roadway that needs improvements and has for more than a couple decades now. So that was a main impetus for that, focus on those EIFDs. We've also put money for parks, regional parks, aquatic centers, to try to really generate that buzz and the development there. So this slide, sorry to backtrack there, but this is really capturing, and we've worked now kind of transitioning to county approaching a city, which is what the County of Madera has done in working with and actually under the guidance of Larry and his team, the whole team at Cosmont, right, was saying, okay, we've got these EIFDs. How can we, look at opportunity zones as well as a part of that? And working with our cities to try to get to that. You want to go to the next slide here? So we have 2 cities in the County of Madera. We can go ahead and go to the next one as well. This is our city of Chowchilla. It's on our northern boundary. And as you see here, we kind of overlaid the blue is the opportunity zones that have been provided there. And so we're working with the city and trying to come up with a game plan on how we can try to generate some growth. They have a large industrial park here just north of State Route 152, which is a main corridor into Silicon Valley and the Bay Area from the valley. And so, we're trying to, my board, it's fortunate I have 3 board members who are former city council members. So they understand the benefit of, the better our cities are doing economically, the better the county is. A rising tide rises all ships is a big saying around here in the county. We want to go to the next one. Next slide. So here is the city of Madera. This is our largest incorporated city, approximately 50 to 60,000 folks here. And so they're seeing some development out there labeled as Village D. But really one of our main projects and what I'm focusing on and working with the city manager and the city council and my board is on the downtown Madera and looking at how we can, there's a big move right now politically and by the community for an arts center and really a revitalizing of downtown Madera. And so how can we work together, the county come to the table, share some of that increment, make those EIFDs make sense for the city as well there. So you want to go to the next slide? This is not in an unincorporated area, but this is on, as I said, you're right here at the Southgate of Yosemite National Park. So we do have some development that's occurring in the community of Oakhurst, which is a small unincorporated community, about 20,000 individual population there. So we're looking at working with that community, which is there is a CFD in the process, and CSD actually, I apologize, being formed to try to create some local control there. So we are working and plugged in with them and talking about where we can potentially look to incentivize and try to generate some economic development there. We want to go to the next. So this is the next couple slides are just snapshots. This is actually, if you want to go, this is the Riverstone project site. The next slide is also Riverstone. If you want to go to the next one, this is actually coming out of the ground and it will be open. It's already leased out. The developer has completely leased out these 2 front buildings that front the corner here are completely leased and will be occupied by the end of summer. So you want to hit the next one? I think I'm coming up on giving ourselves a few minutes for Larry to wrap up there, and then hopefully some questions there. So with that, I'm gonna be quiet and let Larry take over and try to make me sound smarter than I really am.
Yes, so thank you so much, Matt. I think all of you, go to the next slide if you will, Bobby, can surmise that these districts are viable, they're functioning, they have significant plans. I counted just between Placentia and Madera County, 150 million of investment in public infrastructure. By the way, exactly what the state has wanted us to do, leads to housing, leads to sustainability, mobility. And because of that, we are continuing at Cosmont, working with CSAC, working with CalEd, working with Cal Forward and many of the other real estate industry groups, working toward fixing up, improving, enhancing the flexibility of EIFDs. There is a CalEd bill in the hopper now, SB 780, that is going to provide a little bit more board flexibility, especially for county supervisors. It will allow county supervisors to sit on the Public Financing Authority, which manages the EIFD, but have other individuals sit in their place so that there's more flexibility in scheduling meetings. We're also going to clarify project areas rather than just individual districts, and improve the amendment process for infrastructure financing plan. One other piece of legislation that Cosmon is working on would enable EIFDs to modify their infrastructure financing plan to include the ability to condemn out reciprocal easement agreements that govern regional shopping centers. These REAs make it impossible to change the use of a regional center into a mixed use or blended use area without the absolute and unanimous approval of every one of the major anchors, who are now all going out of business. So there's a real dysfunction going on, because the very financing mechanism called commercial real estate agreements, or CREAs, that were used to finance and develop the growth of regional centers in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s is the very obstacle that stands in the way of us reusing those sites. So we've got that piece of legislation in place. So moving forward and wrapping up, I want to leave a little time for questions if there are any. Just in summary, as I was just saying before, again, you've heard now, and again, this panel is a first. You've heard from a supervisor and a council member in a city and a director in a county, 2 counties, really looking at the efficacy, the potential, the prospects of shifting and changing and setting a better path for their regional and local communities using various tools. And one of those tools is tax increment through an EIFD. You also have zoning, you also have entitlements. There are many other ways that we find at Cosmon counties and cities can work on to make sure that their economies pick up steam in this recovery period and capture the value that they need to provide the services that are desired. So in the long run, I think EIFDs are here to stay. We're going to continue to improve them, and I think they have a bright future. I'm looking forward to working with many more counties on joint venture partnerships with the cities. It's really the future, I believe, of sustainability, mobility, and infrastructure and housing for California. So with that, I just, Randy, or if there's any questions that have been collected and you want to throw them out, please do, or let me know. If not, I have some questions for the supervisor and the council member and Matt to chat about some more. So let me know.
Thank you, Larry, and to each of the presenters. I shared some of the questions that were fielded through the question box to you, Larry, through the GoToWebinar platform. So if you can view there, or I can go ahead and just verbally share the questions here with the group.
Oh, I think I see them. Yeah, EIFD leverages by bonding. Does a debt impact the jurisdiction's credit rating? Yeah, so good question. This is a pretty technical finance question. And the question is, if the EIFD leverages by bonding, does the debt impact the does that impact the jurisdiction's credit rating? What do they default? So these are public finance authorities, are standalone entities. So when, let's say, Doug and Chad sit on the Public Financing Authority board, they're representing a different special purpose financing authority. The credit for that financing stands and sits with that financing authority, which has the capacity to repay debt from property tax, pretty much like redevelopment agencies. So it's a standalone credit. It should have no impact on the jurisdictions if there is a default. I think the idea as a municipal advisor, which Cosmon is, the idea is to conservatively underwrite these bonds. And I'll ask the panel if they want to weigh in on any of this, because I know that, you know, debt is always an issue for a council member or a city and a supervisor. So feel free if you guys want to weigh in on that, but that's the technical answer. If not, then I'll just keep going. Let's see. If the EIFD, do EIFDs require a finding of blight? no requirement of blight. That's the very essential ingredient that I think makes EIFDs very facilitative. We do not have to put together a blight report, and we do not have to go through. I'm getting a lot of background noise from someone. We don't have to go through EIR either. So both of those are really beneficial to EIFDs. Keep going. Do EIFDs in terms of, okay, so in terms of, sorry, I've got a box I got to move here. In terms of Orange County's policy, Doug, I think this is going to go to you. In terms of Orange County's policy, in the comparison of the tax increment relative to a city's, the city's share could not be less than the county. Was this on percentage basis of a gross dollar basis, or was it net? And I can help with that if you like, and start it. We look at net fiscal impacts because we want to protect the county general fund. Go ahead, Doug, if you want to speak to that.
Yes, we want to be certain that the city's participation is real. This is a project they're bringing to us, and they should at least equal and preferably exceed what the county's going to put into it, so we know that it's genuine. And it gives us some financial comfort in having it and doing it that way. And so I think I pointed out the state law allows a much more liberal share than Orange County actually did. So it's about sharing and doing it in an equitable manner. And that's why we work that way.
Yep. And I should say that just Chad, maybe you want to speak this a little bit, but the actual split in the number of years was a very facilitated process. I mean, you and the county had a number of discussions and decided that you were in a partnership, you were willing to do it for a certain number of years, you're both going to throw in a certain amount of increment. I don't know if you have any further thoughts on that, because the city was certainly involved in those discussions.
I think part of that, this was our first one. If we had some experience, then I think we could loosen up some of what we're doing and encourage more to come forward. But it's the first one that we have. So,
Chad, any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, we recognize that this was new. It was new for us. It was new for the county. It's new for the state, really. I think we were, I don't know if we were the first or second, but definitely the first in Orange County. So, looking back, it's not the same as redevelopment. And we appreciated the fact that the county was even willing to talk to us, quite frankly, and recognize what we had done and where we had gotten to financially. And so, in the discussions, there really was I think an appreciation on the city side that we not ask for too much or push too hard, and that we recognize, that quite frankly, the county doesn't have to do this. There's no compulsion for them to do this. And, there's a benefit to the county as there's a benefit to the city and the region, but they don't have to do it. And so I think on our side, we had to be humble and appreciative of what we got. My personal philosophy isn't the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. It's really, you don't even have a glass. So even if you get an empty glass, you got something you didn't have before. And I try to carry that into situations like this, where the county's willingness to work with us and move forward was a benefit all around. And we were able to deliver what was really a win-win scenario for the city, the county, the community, and the development community too.
So I think we're coming up against the hour. I just want to ask Matt quickly. I know you're starting to get your cities engaged. Are they resistant, or are they? Do you think they're interested in getting into a partnership with you?
Sorry there, I had to unmute. Good, excellent question, Larry. We've had good success, right? It's always difficult. We had a major turnover in the city council in the city of Madera here locally in the past election, but we are engaging and getting with them and meeting with them regularly. I I mentioned just prior to this webinar, I was working on a tax sharing agreement between the cities, and so the good thing is it starts, and I think everyone on this panel, it always starts with the relationships that you have and building those and getting that trust. That's really where it starts in a lot of these things, is being open and reaching across the aisle and having those discussions. And we have had success with those, and we are moving along through that process. And so nothing firm yet, but we got a lot of agreements. So hopefully sometime soon we'll be out of the ground with something.
And I see the boss is on, Jim Manker. That tells me we're getting the hook. I just want to quickly say that there are a couple of other questions. I can answer them offline, but Doug, Supervisor, there's a request for the county to share its policy, its EIFD policy. So I'm sure we have it. We can do that. So if someone emails me, I'm glad to send it to them, or they can email you. You can send it to them.
Yes, the policy serves as really dual purposes. One, lets our own county staff know the feelings of the board, and then it serves as a template for other EIFD proposals coming to the cities. And so I think it's very important that you have a policy in place, and it can be an encouraging policy. I think it's a great thing. When I see infrastructure wearing out, that's what this is for. And you find it encourages, if you have good infrastructure, private development comes in. And that is incredibly key to making housing and jobs and all of the wonderful things we want to see, at least in Orange County, happen. And I'm really delighted to work with Placentia. They did all the labor. I think they had as many as 28 public meetings before I even got involved. And so they made it easy. I appreciate that.
And just one final thing, I would say that someone has asked if a validation proceeding is necessary for the leverage for the bond issue. It is in Placentia, Orange County. We're starting down the validation process. Another person asked if school participation is excluded. It is excluded by statute. And someone asked about the inclusion of VLF, which is allowed statutorily. The city can throw in its VLF as part of the increment contribution. I think, Jim, I know we're out of time. Let me just say thank you to this incredible panel. You guys have been great, and to Randy and to you, Jim, Zach ILG, for putting this together. Really, really at Cosmo, greatly appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks for
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Larry, and Supervisor Chafee in the wonderful county of Orange, and Matt in Madera County. I want to give you guys a special shout out, all about counties here at CSAC. Of course, don't want to overlook you, Chad, and Placentia. But thanks again, everybody, and have a great rest of the week and weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.